All right, you guys, welcome back to the Integration Code. This is a space where we really begin to explore what it means to come home to ourselves beyond, the tools, the peak experiences, and beyond the illusion that healing is constantly about being in a state of high vibe. Man, if you work one on one with me in my containers, you know this is my favorite spiritual myth to debunk. The state of high vibes only, love and light, all the things that we see on, every social media post on Instagram. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Kaylyn. I am a conscious guide, a trusted peer mind partner, and someone who is deeply devoted to helping others reclaim the truth of who they are through deep inner work, nervous system healing, and really embodied spirituality. And I use the word embodied very intentionally here. So, today we're going to talk about one of the biggest illusions I see in the healing space, and it is this myth of high vibration only. And that subtle, not sometimes so subtle, right? Belief that in order to be spiritually evolved, you must stay in this constant state of gratitude, positivity, high frequency, and never really dive into the depths of your humanity. Okay, so I really want to talk about this good vibes only trap. So, let's start by naming what's really happening here. We live in a culture that glorifies light over dark, joy over sorrow, expansion over contraction. And the spiritual world, in many ways, has simply rebranded that conditioning. What I mean by that is instead of saying, don't be negative, now we say, don't lower your vibration, right? Instead of saying, you need to get over it, we say, you're out of alignment. And essentially what I'm getting at here is it's the same energy. We're just dressing it up with spiritual lingo. It's this idea that higher equals better. Really what this is doing is it's keeping us chasing perpetual expansion, always reaching for another ceremony, another peak state, another download, and another aha, right? And it's like essentially trying to escape the very parts of us that are asking us to be here, to be met. And here's the truth: you cannot bypass your humanity on the way to your divinity. Okay, I'm going to say that again. You cannot bypass your humanity on the way to your divinity. The path home is not upwards, right? I think in the spiritual space, it's always about ascending and, going into these higher realms and, going up, 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 up. And the pathway home is really about going inward, right? Descending into the body, because true integration isn't about maintaining a frequency of bliss. It's about learning to stay with yourself through all the frequencies, right? Through all the emotions. It's about how you relate to yourself and to life. And I just want to redefine what vibration actually is. Vibration is not a hierarchy, it's a harmony. Your vibration isn't higher when you're happy and lower when you're sad. Your vibration becomes coherent when you are being authentic, right? Authenticity is literally the missing key here. When you stop fragmenting yourself to fit an image or what a healed or enlightened person is supposed to look like, the nervous system doesn't regulate because you chant affirmations, right? Or because you reframed a thought. It regulates because your body finally feels safe to be where it's at, to feel what it feels, without judgment, without trying to fix it, without rejecting it. Okay? That is coherence. That's resonance. That's true alignment. And I think that so many people shy away from this because spiritual bypassing is seductive, right? It's another way that we get to avoid ourselves, avoid the work while dressing it up with, spiritual concepts so it looks sexy. I mean, I see people do this all the time, you know, and I guess we have to really talk about spiritual bypassing and, you know, why it is so sneaky, I guess. Spiritual bypassing, happens anytime that we use these spiritual concepts to avoid our human experience. Okay? I want you to really think about that. You know, maybe this shows up like, everything happens for a reason. Just focus on love. Let go. Surrender. My clients probably have heard me say that because I have. And, you know, but those phrases, while well intended, often silence the deeper layers of pain, of truth that are just waiting to be witnessed, that really just want to be acknowledged. There's always something deeper. There's always a deeper wisdom, information, you know, that is available to us. Okay. And I think why the bypassing can become so seductive is because it gives us this illusion of control. I think, it always can break down to, wanting to feel safe or wanting to feel like the state of control. And I think that it really allows us to maybe hover above our pain in some degree, rather than really meeting and descending into it. It lets us feel spiritual, but while saying deeply safe, if that makes sense. It's like growth doesn't happen in the safety alone. It happens through supported discomfort. You can't heal what you're unwilling to feel. You can't embody love by avoiding your grief. Okay? Everybody is just in this constant state of avoidance because they don't want to be uncomfortable, right? But true growth, true expansion comes from you leaning into that. And I think it's so easy for people to bypass this because we've become a society, a collective who is addicted to peak experiences, right? We have a collective of, expansion seekers and these transformational junkies who equate awakening with constant intensity, right? It's always chasing the next big opening, the next revelation, the next high, But what most people don't realize is that chasing intensity is often a trauma response. Yeah. It is this unconscious attempt to recreate aliveness that we lost in childhood. In the moments where we felt numb, unseen, disconnected. And now, subconsciously, we end up adults chasing these moments to make us feel something. Yes, peak experiences can open a door, 100%. But if you don't have the tools to integrate them, they can actually widen your window of dysregulation. You'll experience this high and then a crash back into contraction, feeling even more disconnected than before. Okay? The medicine, the deep state work, the ceremony, they're not meant to be the destination, right? That's not the end game. That is the invitation. They show you what's possible, but the real work begins with the moment when the ceremony ends, when the high fades, right? Integration is where the awakening becomes embodied, where your spirituality becomes embodied, okay? The goal isn't to stay high vibe or bliss constantly, it's to be alive. Aliveness isn't a frequency, it's a capacity. It's your nervous system's ability to hold the full range of what it means to be alive: joy, grief, rage, peace, without collapsing, without feeling like you have to numb, without feeling like you have to reach or try to escape. Okay? You are most alive not when you're, vibrating high, but when you're fully here, when you're present, when your heart breaks open and you let it, when your tears fall and you don't stop apologizing for them or trying to hide it, when, your joy doesn't feel like it needs to be filtered down through worthiness or making other people comfortable. That's where the divine meets the human. Not in your avoidance of the dark, but in your willingness to sit with it and to listen to it. Okay? So, why does this matter? What does real integration look like? Or what does it look like when we stop bypassing our humanity? I think it's really when you stop labeling parts of yourself as low vibe or unhealed, right? It's when you see your anger as sacred, your grief as love that has nowhere to go, and your fear as protection that's simply on overtime, right? It's overworking. And integration is remembering that you were never broken, you've just become fragmented. And every time you meet a part of yourself with this new level of compassion instead of judgment, you call that fragmented part of you home. This is what I mean when I say coming home to yourself, okay? It's not about achieving some enlightened, perfect version of you. It's about remembering that the wholeness has already been here, that all of you is perfect, right? That there's no part of you that you need to change, that you need to hide, that you need to fix. And what would it look like to really accept all that you are? So, I think I want to end this is just to offer you maybe a few practices for really embodying this at home. You know, I would really invite you to stop trying to pause the reframe. When something feels heavy, resist the urge to instantly try to spiritualize it, right? Instead, allow yourself to feel it. Name it out loud. This is sadness. This is contraction. This is fear, right? And simply just creating space where you get to be with that part of yourself without an agenda, without trying to fix it, just presence. Really grounding before you ascend. Expansion, without grounding really is what leads us to these deeper states of fragmentation. Before seeking higher states, you really need to anchor into your body. Feel your feet, slow your breath, really becoming present. I think my biggest thing that has helped me navigate so much change and seasons of expansion and rebirth in my life has begun to honor the seasons, right? We're just like nature. We are nature. We have cycles. And there will be times of expansion and there will be times of withdrawal. And both are sacred and both are necessary. Um, what else? Redefine high vibration. Let your definition of high vibration just be truth. Truth is the most potent frequency in the universe. It cuts through all illusion, always. You know, let it be coherent. Let it be integrity, right? Because the most magnetic energy in the world isn't bliss, right? It's authenticity. So, as you begin to move through your own journey, remember you don't need to escape your humanity to find your divinity. That your body is a vessel, it is a temple, the heart is the altar, and your emotions are literally prayers. You're not meant to, transcend yourself. You're really meant to remember and reclaim yourself. True awakening isn't found in chasing light, it's found in loving yourself in the dark. And the most high vibrational thing, that you could do is to just live honestly. Thank you so much for being here, for tuning in, joining me again, and for doing this work. Not the kind that separates you from life, but the kind that brings you closer to it. And if today's episode resonated with you, I would love for you to share it with someone who's ready to stop chasing highs and who's ready to just live fully alive. And as always, if you're feeling called to explore this work more deeply, to experience conscious therapy and integration support through my at home psychedelic containers, you can learn more about that in the show notes. So until next time, you guys, love ya.